Today's question is all about the kind of paper you can use to make your own stencils. And since we did a couple of projects in our workshop involving stencils, I have a big opinion on what's going to work and what is not going to work. This is the Creative Crafters Podcast. Hi, I'm Bette from Bette's Makes, and this is your questions answered. Now, paper is never created the same. It doesn't matter what you use. You can use any paper to make a stencil. The biggest issue is when you make a stencil, it has to be able to take the water or the moisture and not be bendy when you go to make the stencil itself. So I have a couple of opinions here. I used tracing paper, which can work okay. The biggest problem, it is too flimsy and rips too easily in order to make a really good stencil. Doesn't matter what mat you use with the tracing paper, it will stick too hard and you will get rips in your stencil. So I marked that one off as something I really didn't want to use. Now, vellum works really well for creating a stencil. The trouble with vellum is it doesn't like moisture. So if you're going to use vellum for a stencil and it has moisture, so you're going to use a lunar or solar paste or any kind of paste on it or anything like that, it's going to give you some trouble. However, you can use crayons and other things that are fairly dry, and vellum will work perfectly for exactly what you want. Now, there is a matte paper that you can buy. It's called matte stencil film, and that is meant for exactly to use with stencils. It's durable, you can get it wet, and it will stay on a flat surface. You just have to make sure that how far you cut it, meaning how intricate your cuts are, is going to make a difference on how it will turn out on the other side, because it doesn't adhere to the surface itself. You may get a few bleeds, that type of thing, when you're using that stencil. And then there is a fourth kind, and it is a really thin graphics style. I would call it paper, but it's a roll with a backing, but it's very, very, very thin. Now, the best way to use that type of paper, of course, is to cut through the backing for your stencil, so the stencil includes the backing. The biggest problem with that type of stencil paper is when you pull it off that backing, it sticks to itself, it gets all balled up. It is not very easy to work with, but it does adhere to the surface. Now, another experiment I tried with it, of course, is you can cut things out right on transfer tape. Yes, but use the light grip transfer tape. And then when you pull the backing off, you have a stencil that is made up of your transfer tape. And of course, water's not going to bother it, and it will stick to the surface. So there are some ideas of what to use for making your stencil. This has been the Creative Crafters Podcast, and your questions answered.